Hey guys, it's Yorkie here with some Project Cars gameplay, and today we're going to be racing in an LMP2 Orica 03 Nissan, and we're racing around Watkins Glen. It's kind of a fairly longish race. It's about 15 laps and should be interesting. It's an LMP2 class race. We're starting from the middle of the grid, which I believe is about 11th or 10th. We're just waiting for the lights to go green, so this is the start sequence now. And we are underway, getting a launch off the line, which is okay, but not quite as good as the guy to the left of me there. Just checking that wing mirror to see if there's any more cars coming down the outside as we come now down into turn one. Got plenty of room in front of me, so I kind of want to use that to my advantage. It looks like there's a little bit of contact there between the AI, and I've slipped up a couple of places as we're coming now into very fast sweeping right hand of turn two. As we come up over the crest, have to lift ever so very slightly. You can hear the car bottoming out on the curb on the left hand side there. It looks like we picked up the slipstream of this Orica in front of us. Looking down to his inside as we come down towards the chicane, but it looks like he's got the slipstream advantage now of the car in front. Backing out of the move and slipping in back behind him as we come through the chicane complex now and down into this fairly medium speed long right hander. Just checking that wing mirror to my right there just to see where the car is behind me. Bouncing over the curb there, and car bottoming out once again, the brakes squeaking in their rather cool temperature. It looks like a couple of cars in front of us are kind of jostling for position, going side by side. It looks like we've got a slower car just here trying to squeeze down the inside there, but he pretty much shuts the door on me. But he's going to leave this Orica out on the exit here out to dry, and we managed to slip past him up the inside into the next turn, or before the next turn, and him as well. So a couple of places gained just there through down that straight and through that sequence of corners. Just checking the wing mirrors to see where the guys are behind me. Looks like one of them is fairly close and in a threatening position. It looks like he's actually up the inside here on me and coming in through this corner, clipping the barrier upon the exit, trying to get on the throttle as early as possible and try and prevent him from gaining that place. I've actually gone and lost 2 places because of that as well, and I believe I'm roughly now in 9th position, roughly around then, as we come out of the final corner to start the second lap. It looks like we've got the slipstream of this Orica, this Nissan in front of us. So having a look down the inside, his car looks absolutely fantastic in that livery. Just about managing to squeeze down the inside of him there, leaving him plenty of room upon the exit, but he's actually gone and taken the exit curb and the runoff area to the left of the circuit there, and has managed to rather cheekily retain the position. But we have picked up the slipstream again as we're coming down along this back straight, slipping on underneath him here through that very shallow right hander. It looks like I've gained the position before coming down into the chicane. Looking over in that wing mirror just to see where he is, trying to carry as much speed as possible into the entrance of the chicane complex and see if we can immediately start closing the gap on the guy in front coming through this very fast long right hander. Just checking that left wing mirror, right hand wing mirror, sorry, there, just to see how close he is behind me still. As I can hear the cars behind me, the car getting ever so very slightly unsettled on the curb there, but managing to give a quick flick of opposite lock and keeping the car in check. It looks like he's backed off a fair bit now, so we can go full attack on the guy in front of us. Again, the car getting a little bit sideways and getting very close to the barrier on the exit there. Did run onto the grass, but managing to keep the car pointing in the right direction just about. So coming through into the latter part of the lap now, and just trying to keep it fairly smooth and try and stay as close as possible to the guy in front, trying to keep pace with the AI. The AI difficulty is set to about 88% at the moment. Seems just about right for me, and also this level of cars, not too aggressive, good race pace, and can make some interesting moves as well. So I'm not too far off the guy behind. We're probably just about picking up the slipstream, but obviously this straight isn't really long enough to take any sort of advantage from that. Taking a fair bit of curb on the inside there, and the car, as it comes over a slight dip on the exit of the corner, getting slightly unsettled. You do have to kind of wrestle the car a little bit just to keep it in the right direction whilst on the power. Looks like we're picking up the slipstream now. We're ducking to the inside through that fast sweeping right hander there, going side by side as we're coming down to the complex, looking over at him. The car looks absolutely fantastic with the track IR when you do that, but the AI seem to carry a fair bit more speed coming into the chicane complex there, and managed to maintain the position. And it was a little bit slower coming out through the exit, and I did account for that, but that's actually going to cost me time now as well. As you can see, I've dropped back a little bit. The lighting and the track looking absolutely fantastic in these conditions. As you can see, those are the guys just up there in front of us. I believe the leaders are in that battle as well, and you can see just about there on the right hand side if you were quick enough, you would have been able to see where the car behind is in that wing mirror. He's fairly close, but not too close. Just taking another quick glance as we come into the right-hander just then. And I do it from time to time. Just check, look over, see where they are as they're coming through a corner. It's the best place, the easiest way to see them, because when you're actually going down the straight, the wing mirrors kind of point more outwards from the car rather than straight back. So unless they're actually, you know, fairly close or trying to pull up alongside you, you can't actually see them in the wing mirrors, which is quite a nice touch. It makes it quite tense, and it makes you have to actually check the wing mirrors fairly often. So coming through the first turn now to, I believe, start of lap 4. As you can see, we're gaining on the guy all the way through this complex of corners here. The car bottoming out ever so slightly. I have changed the setup, raised the suspension ride height, and also the bump stop as well, made it ever so slightly higher. It looks like we're not quite as far alongside as we were on the previous lap, so I'm going to back out of this one and let him go and try and carry as much speed and follow him through the complex here. See if we can kind of stay close through this long right-hander. Maybe have a slight look coming down into this left-hander, but it doesn't look like we are quite close enough. Braking in this for this corner isn't quite as hard and doesn't really present too much of an opportunity to slip down and try and make an overtaking manoeuvre, unless you're actually very, very close and pretty much alongside the guy that you're battling with. So, as you can see, just trying to carry the speed through the corners, try and keep the tyre temperatures up, as the racing conditions are set to about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and obviously as time goes on it gets cooler and cooler as well. These tyre temperatures are a little bit harder to manage, and actually will start to drop a little bit more as the surface temperature of the track drops as well. And there is actually quite a big difference between, say, midday, evening, and then kind of midnight in terms of grip levels. It's quite drastic, closing up very, very close under the braking there of the guy in front, and you can see the detail of the rear end of that car with the mesh and also the LED lights on the back of his car, ever so very close there to making contact with him, but not quite. Looks like we're trying to slip up the inside a little bit, a tiny little bit of contact there, just a very small nudge from behind, and it looks like I managed to slip past him. I've actually gone onto the grass as I was looking across to see where he is, just carrying the speed in, and it looks like I managed to gain a position there. Fairly cheeky of myself, if I must say so, as the contact did slow down that guy, which did allow me to slip past. But the move had been coming for quite a long time. Actually went fairly deep into the corner there, had to drop down into second gear to kind of bring the car back in tighter and bring that front end in to where I wanted it to be, and that did allow the guy behind to close up a little bit, but it looks like I managed to retain the position, and he's not too far off from the rear of my car. Obviously if I make a mistake, he's in a prime position to take full advantage of that. But I'm just trying to be nice and smooth now and see if I can actually start to close down the guys in front. As you can see, looking over in the rear view mirrors just to see how much the gap is increasing or decreasing to the guy behind. I'll take another quick look there, and it looks like the gap is increasing. So with that in mind, I'm going to start focusing on the guys behind a little bit less and start focusing more on the guys in front, as obviously checking your wing mirrors often and basically your thoughts to the guys behind you is going to make you ever so very slightly slower, whereas if you've got something in front of you to focus on chase, you push that a little bit harder, and it's a little bit easier to be a fair bit smoother. You feel less under pressure, you feel the pressure's more on the guy in front, and it allows you just to drive that little bit faster, just that little bit smoother and cleaner. And as you can see, the gap is starting to close visually in places here and there. We're pretty much about even in the in AI terms, when compared to the AI, sorry. Going through that chicane complex and also that fast right-hander there. Same through that corner and probably this next corner as well. Basically braking the same pace, carry roughly the same amount of speed when in open air, but obviously the guys in front are jostling for position ever so slightly. They've got a little bit of traffic, so that's obviously hindering their progress. They're probably not as fast as they could be, and as you can see there in that braking zone, close up a fair bit more to the guy in front. This corner I tend to struggle with ever so slightly on the exit. It's quite difficult to keep the car fairly tight whilst also getting on the power and kind of modulating it and being smooth upon the exit. The guy is actually slowing down there, so I'm having to go around the outside. He's actually going off into the pits, but I've gone and ridden the curb in a rather aggressive fashion. The car bottomed out, which just made the car basically lose contact with the ground below and made a slight bunny hop and then to the barrier, but I've managed to get away with it. I do actually have the damage off in this race, as the damage does some funny things to the AI being in contact when you get punches and hot tires and things like that, and just to kind of leave those out of the race for a moment. It's a much better race without the damage on. It is there, and the damage is pretty good, if I say so myself. It's just it can do some funny things with the AI, and I don't really want to show it until the issue has been addressed slightly or they behave in a more realistic fashion. I felt like I was going a little bit deep into the corner there, but I managed to hook up a rather nice late apex with that second gear. It really does help to bring the car in a little bit tighter, although I do prefer using third gear. The car just feels a little bit more stable, whilst also still providing a nice fair bit of acceleration upon the exit. So we've gained a couple of places from the start. I believe I'm roughly in about 6th position, roughly about now. I've lost count as to how many laps we're actually into this race, but if you keep an eye on the Motec display there in the cockpit, you may see me from time to time flicking through the screens, basically just monitoring fuel loads, tyre temperatures, and a few other things like that. It looks like there's a couple of cars swapping positions there as another guy pulls off into the pits. Just slowed the guys down in front of me a fairly decent amount, which is allowing me to actually slip up towards them and up onto the rear of the guy in front in his DXTory. It's the car that he's in, and it looks absolutely fantastic. Such aggressive curves, lines and diffuser parts, and you can actually see coming through here the internals of the car with the axles and the suspension and everything else like that. The car models in this game are absolutely fantastic, and SMS have done a fantastic job of modelling pretty much every part of the car which can become exposed and visible. So I imagine if you do enough damage, the rear of that car may pop off, the body shell may pop off, and you'll be able to see all the internal workings down below. I'm not 100% sure on that, as I haven't actually tested that one out myself. I know in some cars you can pop off bodywork panels. The Zonda R is particularly good for that. You can knock off the front, the rear, you can see the engines, you can see obviously all the drive shafts and everything else like that, and it looks very, very nicely detailed indeed, and very cool. But let's get back to the racing. So you can see we're fairly close to the guy in front. I believe we're now in 5th position. The guy in front is in 4th. Obviously the guy in front of him is in 3rd. And then the guy who seems to be holding us up a little bit is in 2nd. Some of the AI have been pitting, which is a little bit odd considering I don't actually need to pit in this race. The tyres managed to keep their grip throughout the entire duration of this race. I took enough fuel into the race as well, so I didn't have to do a stop for fuel. So I'm guessing the AI, a couple of them running a fairly different strategy and seeing if they can go really light on fuel, see if they can pull out a gap and then make a quick splash and dash for the finish. But we're not going to be doing that. We're not going to be doing a pit stop in this race. The pit stops themselves are in a pretty good stage. They're almost finished. From what I last saw when I last tried them out, there's just a few things they can tweak just to clean up here and there, and the animations will be absolutely fantastic as the car gets very unsettled. Coming into that left-hander there, having to flick the wheel to the right to keep it in check before we actually kind of get in towards the apex. One of the cars here is very, very slow, which has made the guy that I've now just slipped past very slow as well, taking full advantage of that and slipping up into 4th position now, as the guy got squeezed in towards the barrier and had to back out ever so slightly. I really need to stop saying those 3 words. There is going to be a video coming, a parody on that. I'm going to have to do it. Oh dear. But yes, coming back to the racing now. And the track looks absolutely fantastic. The detail of the crowds all the way around the circuit. You see all the skid marks around the corners, kind of matching what you would imagine to be in a fairly realistic scenario. They kind of follow the contours of the track. You can see also the skid marks on the grass as well. This bit I love is the details of the cars in the crowds over on the right hand side there as we come through this very fast sweeping section as we come up over the crest and then down into this back straight. We've got a hell of a slipstream here, a fair bit more speed than the guy who is now to my left but has gone and braked later than me, has gone and maintained the position by leaping over the curb ever so very slightly. Did quickly check in the rear view mirror, the side mirror, sorry, to see how close the guy was behind me, and he isn't too far behind, but I've got a bit of breathing room, so I'm going to continue to focus on the 2 guys in front of me and see if we can slip up past them sometime, hopefully soon, into 2nd position. Just being nice and smooth with the throttle, picking it up and bringing the power in nice and smoothly. Just keeping the car a little bit of contact there as the guy got caught on the curb, and there's the other guy who's going to manage to step up to my outside, but I've got the inside for this corner, so hopefully should be able to maintain the position by squeezing him up onto the outside. Looks like he's just about backed out of it. Probably couldn't get the car into the apex of the corner with me on the inside and has lost a load of time because of that. Quick flick of opposite lock there as we try and catch the rear end as it steps out just a tiny bit, trying to push and close the gap up to 3rd place. As we come in now to the start of another lap. Brakes still squeaking, they do sound rather nice, although I do think the sounds of those could be tweaked a little bit. I think it should be more based on cold brakes. Cold brakes tend to squeak a little bit in racing cars, and also as they get worn over time, rather than braking pretty much or squeaking all the time that you apply the brakes. But even still, it's quite a nice touch, and it's a good indication of how hard you actually are braking. Obviously you yourself know when actually driving, but you guys probably don't know just quite how much I am braking. You could probably give a slight more sound indicator as to how much I am modulating the brakes into corners and the like. Again, just checking those mirrors, but I couldn't really see the guy behind me then. Checking it again as the guy was rather slow, and because of that made a bit more contact with him and have dropped back a fair bit, probably about 0.8 seconds to a second behind him now, as he's trying to get past up into 2nd position, but the guy's just maintaining and holding his line, which is causing him to have to back out onto the brakes and off the throttle a little bit more, which is slowing him down and also slowing the guy in 2nd position down ever so very slightly as well, and carrying a little bit too much speed there. And it looks like this guy's going to be diving into the pits. He's fairly slow. The AI do take a bit of an odd line, and yep, he's gone into the pits now, so that's going to gift me 3rd place, but there is quite a gap to 2nd, but he has been fairly slow, as you've seen over the last 5-6 laps or so, and has actually been holding the guys who I've been fighting with and slipping past, and also myself. He has been holding me up a bit too, but hopefully we'll be able to close up to the back of him and see if we can slip back up or slip up into 2nd position fairly soon. Going a little bit deep there into the chicane, fairly slow. It sounds like the car is fairly close behind me. There he is, just about managing to catch a glimpse of him coming through the sweeping right-hander. Taking another quick look, he's not quite close enough to make a move into here, so providing I hit my braking spot and get the car turned in, he's not going to be able to slip up the inside, which is exactly what I do. As you can see, just checking those wing mirrors just to see where he is, keeping an eye on making sure that he's not trying to make a move on me at any point, and that I will be able to turn into the apex of the corner. another few quick looks, and that car does look rather mean sat in that rear view mirror. It's not really a car that I want to be sat there. It looks rather aggressive in the bodywork styling, and they do also have some fantastic liveries for that car as well. And to be honest, pretty much all the cars in the game have fantastic racing liveries. There are some where they're not so great. Some of the older cars that have been in the game since the very early builds, but a lot of the later ones where the community have been getting involved as well and creating some of the racing liveries for the various cars that have been added throughout the months of this game's development. And the last couple of years, SMS have been putting in the community-based liveries with maybe one or two adjustments here or there in terms of sponsorship and things like that. If it's obviously trying to get licensing rights for sponsorship can be fairly difficult, so most of it is fictional, but even still it looks really nice. There are quite a few liveries that are based off of real world racing team liveries as well, and you can see that in some of the cars, but obviously they are patterned ever so very slightly different, maybe use different colours and also different sponsorship as well. But yeah, the cars in the game do look absolutely fantastic. This is quite a nice livery that I found for this car, so I decided to use it in this one. Quite like the contrast between the fairly deep sea blue and the kind of the pale green. I would have said mint green, but it's not really quite mint green, even though it's a funky looking racing livery. And we are still, as you can see, pushing to try and close the gap to the guy in front. The guy behind in fourth is still managing to keep pace with us so far. As you can see, we're on lap 14 out of 15, so we're coming into the second to last lap. Just having a quick look at the brake and also the tyre temperatures there. They're in a pretty good place at the moment. Obviously the right front, sorry, isn't quite as warm as the left front due to the clockwise nature of this circuit, but we are now slipping up the inside of the guy there alongside. I actually got up onto the curb there trying to avoid him, and I've had to slow down a little bit. He also slowed down. He's there somewhere still on my outside. There he goes. Kind of the grass surface very slightly as well to maintain the position, and I've backed out of it ever so slightly. Let him go, regroup and try and mount an attack either on the, well, hopefully before the end of the lap or potentially in the next lap as well, if I can keep fairly close to him. Obviously the guy in fourth is also still there on my tail as well, so I need to be a little bit wary of him as we close up to the back of his car quite nicely. And you can see the detail on the rear end of his car. His car is exactly the same as mine, the Orica 03 Nissan. It's a very nice car to drive. It has improved greatly over the last couple of months. It was quite a difficult car to handle, but it's been tamed a fair bit more and it's a little bit more realistic, more believable, and with the setup adjustments that I made to the suspension, it has improved the handling of the car a little bit more. It's a little bit easier to drive upon the exit of corners and also through the high speed corners as well. And this is it, coming into the final lap. It doesn't look like we're going to be close enough to mount an attack into the first corner, but I should be able to close up on him in the braking zone, which is exactly what I do. Trying to account for the car trying to break away from me over the dip, coming out of the exit of the first turn. I'm just going to sit behind him coming through this second turn into the third turn now. This is where I try and see if we can slip up the inside, coming into the fourth turn, try and gain that inside line, ready for this fast right hand chicane. He's there on my outside somewhere, I'm not entirely sure, braking as late as possible, trying to carry as much speed into the corner as possible. There's a tiny little bit of contact there, and I've had to take to the grass to avoid making any contact with him. There goes the guy in fourth. He's trying to slip down the outside, but there was a tiny bit of contact there as he squeezed me in towards the inside of the corner, and he's going to slip back down into fourth position. I've managed to maintain third just about, and I don't think I'm going to be close enough to mount an attack coming into the final few corners of the last lap. As you can see, there is a bit of a gap there. There's about 4 or 5 car lengths, so it seems, to the guy in front, and providing that he can nail all his braking points, which it looks like that he is doing, he should be able to maintain that position fairly easily. He took a slightly different line to the AI coming through that corner there. They seem to hook up a later apex with a wider entry, as I kind of take a more middle apex and then open up on the exit ever so very slightly more. And we're coming through now into the last corner, so it looks like I'm going to take third position. I'm not going to be able to gain second. A little bit of dust flying up from the car behind as we come over the start finish line to finish in third. So a very, very good race. I thoroughly enjoyed doing that, actually. Quite like to do some more long distance races. Proved quite a challenge, and I think some more long distance stuff with some pit stop and some strategy into it will play very nicely and create some rather interesting scenarios. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Please give it a rating. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and hopefully I shall see you in the next video. Thanks very much, guys. Take care.